What is a research paradigm? And where do you write about your research paradigm in your thesis? Keep watching because I'm going to tell you. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley and I've got 20 years experience of supporting social science graduate students through their dissertations. In that time, I've encountered a lot of anxious and worried students fretting over research paradigms. Understanding what a research paradigm is and which one you identify with, that can be difficult enough. But then you've got to figure out where you write about all that in your thesis. Should you wait until your methods chapter? Should it come into your literature review? What about your discussion? Let's sort all of that out today. First up, what is a research paradigm? Think of a paradigm as the rules of the game when it comes to research. It sets the boundaries, the parameters of how a researcher thinks about their study. Defining what's in scope, defining how they actually go about their research. It's like having a playbook that guides every element of the research, from your goals to the methods that you use to how you make sense of it all in the end. So your research paradigm will heavily influence your research. It will have an impact on the factors you decide to focus on. It will determine how you go about collecting and analysing your data. It will shape how you interpret your findings. So, it's a massively big deal. To make this a bit easier, a bit simpler, let's use an analogy. High school cliques. Just like in high school, where you have different groups of kids, the goths, the science nerds, the artsy kids, the activists, the gamers, the mean girls, the jocks, etc. Social science has different groups of researchers. Each group has its own unique culture and way of doing things. This high school analogy is helpful because it shows us that the groups aren't completely isolated from each other. So for example, the gamers and the jocks share a common interest, and that is they like playing games that have got rules. Similarly, researchers from different paradigms have common goals. So whether you're a positivist, whether you're an interpretivist, whether you're a critical realist, you will have the aim of understanding and explaining social phenomenon. But depending on which one of those paradigms you belong to, you'll go about achieving that in different ways. So whilst each paradigm has its own distinct methods and beliefs, its own playbook and set of rules, they all contribute to our overall understanding of the social world in unique and different ways. Now, in a moment, I'm going to do a very quick whistle-stop tour of each of those paradigms, so positivists, interpretivists, critical realists. However, if you want a deeper dive into any of these, go and check out my paradigms playlist, which I will pop up on the screen right now, and I'll also link to in the description. So firstly, the positivists. Imagine them as the science geeks of the social science research world. They are all about hard facts, quantifiable data, and objective truth. And just like scientists in a lab, they like measuring and predicting. They draw inspiration from the natural sciences to understand the social world. They believe that with the right principles and approaches, we can make sense of the social world in a similar way to the way we make sense of the natural world. Next up, the interpretivists. Think about them as the artsy, creative clique in high school. These researchers focus on people's stories, meanings, and subjective experiences. They dive deep into the drama and the richness of human life. Unlike the positivists, the interpretivists don't believe that you can fully detach from the social world that you're studying because you are essentially part of that social world. And lastly, critical realists. Picture them as the activist kids, the social justice warriors of the research world. Critical realists dig beneath the surface to uncover the deeper structures and mechanisms that shape our society. They blend elements of positivism and interpretivism whilst championing social justice. Like interpretivists, they are interested in individual experiences, but they want to situate those experiences within a broader social context. Thinking about factors like the economy, the political system, religion, they want to understand how those structures impact on people's lived experiences. So that's a quick overview of what a paradigm is and 3 example paradigms from the social sciences. And as I said at the beginning of that section, the link to the playlist in which I do much deeper dives into all 3 of those is in the description. Before we move on to the next part of the video, drop in the comments the paradigm that you find the most appealing. It might be one that you are already working really confidently within, or it might be one that you've just learned about now and you're like, yeah, that sounds good to me. I would love to know what paradigm camp you're sitting within or which one you're kind of veering towards, so drop that in the comments. Okay, next up, where in your thesis should you be writing about your research paradigm and how do you do that? Get ready to take some screenshots in the sections that are coming up because I'm going to share some sentence templates with you. Paradigms can sometimes feel quite difficult to write about. It can be challenging to find the words and the phrasing to bring your research paradigm into your writing without sounding weird. So coming up, I've got a load of sentence templates to help you with that. Now, where to write about your research paradigm? As I said at the start, your research paradigm is massively influential when it comes to your study. It guides a lot of the decisions you make. It shapes what your research looks like. So, in my humble opinion, you should be referring to it throughout your thesis, pretty much in every chapter. But the extent to which you're discussing it is going to vary from chapter to chapter, and how you're writing about it is going to vary from chapter to chapter too. So let's walk through some of the thesis chapters now and consider what you might be saying about your research paradigm in each of them. So first up, your introduction. Now, your introduction is where you set the context for your research. You write about why your research is important, why it matters. You outline key terms and definitions, and you explain how that research is framed. So writing about your research paradigm is important here. Be super clear and direct in your language when you're talking about your paradigm in the introduction. Identify what paradigm you're working within, why you've chosen it, what the implications of working within this paradigm have for your study, and signpost the reader to other parts of your study where you're going to go into more depth about that. Now get ready to take some screenshots, because here are some phrases that you will find super helpful for writing about your paradigm in the introduction. Next up, the literature review. Now, the literature review isn't a place where you might naturally think,
yeah, I should write about my research paradigm here.
Because the literature review is a critical consideration of existing literature that other people have written. But writing about your paradigm in the literature review is important for several reasons. Doing so helps bridge the gap between the existing literature and your research. You make it clear to the reader where you're coming from, and in turn, how your stance relates to those of authors who've already produced research in this field. It also helps you to guide your critique. When you're clear about your paradigm, you're clear about your approach to analysing the existing literature. You've got a set of standards you can use to judge how valuable that existing research is. You know what you're looking for when you're exploring the literature. So say, for example, you're an interpretivist and you've come across a piece of literature that sits very much within the positivist paradigm. You might be critical of its focus on the quantifiable data and its lack of attention to subjective meanings and experiences. You might question how well a study like this captures those nuanced experiences of individuals who are affected by whatever issue. You might consider the limitations of this study in capturing the social context. Understanding where existing literature fits, understanding what particular paradigm a specific study might lie within, is really helpful in boosting your ability to critically analyse it and see how it can shape your own research. And being aware of your own paradigmatic positioning can help you assess how valuable or not the existing literature is for your study. Here are some phrases you might find helpful in your literature review when you're writing about paradigms. The methods chapter. Writing about your paradigm in the methods chapter is super important because it shapes everything within your study, from how you design it to how you collect and analyse data. Explaining this clearly helps your readers see why you've chosen particular methods. It makes your research much more cohesive and easy to follow. Your paradigm dictates your overall approach to your study, your overall approach to doing your study. For example, a positivist paradigm will lead you to design a study that focuses on measurable, observable phenomena, whilst an interpretivist approach will emphasise understanding the subjective experiences of people who are affected by a topic or an issue. By explaining how your paradigm shapes your research design, you clarify why you've chosen specific methods and how they align with your research aims, your objectives, and your questions. The methods and techniques that you use to gather your data are directly influenced by your paradigm. Positivists, for example, typically prefer quantitative methods like experiments or surveys, whilst interpretivists might lean more towards qualitative methods like interviews or participant observation. Your paradigm also impacts on how you analyse your data. Positivists might rely on statistical analysis to draw conclusions. Interpretivists might use things like thematic analysis to identify patterns and themes. Quick side note, I recently did a video on thematic analysis in terms of how to do it, the Braun and Clark 6-step process, and I will link to that on the screen right now and in the description. So in terms of your paradigm in the methods chapter, By being really open and transparent about how it's impacted on each stage of your research, from the design to the data collection to the data analysis, you're providing a really clear and coherent framework which enhances the credibility of your study. And here are some sentence templates to help you write about paradigms in your methods chapter. Lastly, discussion and conclusions. Writing about your paradigm in the closing sections of your thesis is going to help you assess how it influenced your findings. It's useful for looking at where it was helpful and where it fell short. Throughout your study, the framework that you've been using, the paradigm that you've been working within, that has offered you particular opportunities, but it's also come with specific challenges, and here's where you can talk about that. And by this point in your research, you are going to be much more confident and much more knowledgeable about all of the ins and outs of your paradigm. So the specific things that you're going to write about in these chapters is going to be very much dependent on what you're doing in your research. And here are some sentence templates that you might find helpful here. Popping up on your screen right now is another video that you might want to watch if you want some more introductory stuff about paradigms. It goes into a bit more depth than I've been able to in this video, so come and geek out with me on all things paradigm. I will see you there.